In this episode of the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast, me and my guy Richard Stayman are going to share our thoughts on the 2024 NBA Draft. I know it is early, it is still July, but we're ready to talk about the 2024 draft, which is like 11 months away from now. This will be Richard's first time, at least on Locked On NBA Big Board podcast, to talk about the 2024 class. So stay tuned to hear Richard's first thoughts on 24. Big shout out to each and every person that has made the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast your first listen of the day. I'm your host, Rafael Barlowe, the director of scouting for NBA Big Board and the founder of NBA Draft Junkies, and my co-host for today's Mr. Mavs Magic Draft has a whole new setup. What's going on, man? How are you?
Hey, it's been a second. Last time I think we recorded, I'm wearing a summer league shirt. You can't tell at all because of the angle I'm sitting at, but it's been 2.5 weeks, I think, since we did that podcast together. It has been I don't know about you, but I feel like I just recovered from that pretty recently. Like Vegas is a different animal. And I was there, I feel like the weakest time for it too. Like not for summer league, but like a Monday through Thursday.
I was going to say, did I see you in Vegas? But we did a podcast together, but I just didn't see you at the gym.
No, we saw each other for a second before Keontae played with Utah.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, man. And how long were you there? Monday through Thursday?
Yeah, I left Thursday morning, but essentially.
Yeah. You got to go opening weekend and be out of there by Tuesday morning. That's the best
To
way to do it.
to be fair, I got COVID. I had to push it back. I was supposed to be there Thursday through Monday,
Yeah.
but
Ooh, Thursday.
sometimes, life.
Oh, so you just pushed it back.
Yeah.
All right. 2024. Let's just get right into it. Who is your number one guy in 2024?
I'm a huge Ron Holland guy. He happens to be from Dallas, but you look at just everything you want from a wing, like a true small forward, I feel like you get out of Ron Holland. You get the great athleticism. I think a lot of jump shooting upside there, defense, potential just to be that star wing. I think he's the best chance at it.
You think he's a natural three?
That's where the question marks come in. Is he a mid-sized four? Like he's kind of a tweener in that regard but again, though, like tweener isn't always a bad thing,
Yeah.
right? It's just what exactly is going to be his specific role is my question mark for him. Like none of the guys at the top, I feel comfortable saying this is exactly what they're going to do. They're going to do this at a high level. Like it's not as clear as it has been the last couple of drafts. Whereas this one, I don't know what to expect from Holland in the Ignite too, because the roster makeup's kind of awkward too.
Yeah. I think he's a natural four. With some three skills. In today's NBA, that's fine. But my first impression of watching him live was when Imani Bates and Ipsy Prep came to Dallas in 2020, and he was a sophomore, I believe, and he had 18 points and 16 rebounds. Ron is just a different dude, man. He dominates and impacts winning in a Sean Marion type of way, I believe. Like, you don't have to run plays for him. He's not going to he can score. He averaged 20 points a game, but it's not like a bunch of ISO. It's just running the floor, offensive rebounds, energy, hustle. And I think the baseline of that is good, that he can, again, impact and change games with his defense and his hustle and energy. And then I think as you continue to add more offensive skill set to what he has, then he could be pretty special. What do you think about him as a passer? I had this argument in Las Vegas in Summer League, and someone compared him to Draymond Green as a passer. I didn't see it, but they were like, well, if you saw Draymond at the same age, I feel like Draymond was a natural playmaker in a sense, as far as just a guy that you can initiate the offense through. I think Ron is like a really good ball mover. He does have good passing instincts, but I see him as like a ball mover, as an unselfish guy, but I don't see him as someone that you can initiate the offense like Draymond did. So what is your thoughts about his passing?
Yeah, I think he has good passing ability, but he's not Draymond. I think a lot of it comes from the top of the key, which is a little bit easier, I think, to pass from when you're holding the ball for a little bit. But I will say the big thing for him that really impresses me is a lot of times, he loves getting downhill quickly. And it's not for a lot of guys, especially his size, I think when they get downhill, they see one thing and they see one thing only. They see that rim.
Tunnel
For
vision.
him, yeah. And he doesn't get it. He doesn't get tunnel vision. He very much sees the floor. I do think there is an element of massive positivity out of that trait. Being able
Yep.
to just see the floor moving full speed at a high level, that's big when you're going to have the ball in your hands a lot.
Yep. All right. Who's your number two?
Right now, it could change every single day. At the moment, I'm not confident in this one, but I'll go with DJ Wagner, who I keep every time this is the magic effect, like, Mavs and Magic. I keep wanting to say DJ Wagner. I don't know. I can't be alone in this. After watching Franz for so long, I cannot be alone. Even though I knew his dad first, it's still, I always want to say DJ Wagner, but with DJ Wagner, I really have been blown away by his slashing. I think he'll eventually come around as a jump shooter, and just his ability to get to the basket. I really do think he does a lot of things that you want from your guard, and you just hope that his passing turns into very high level passing, and from there, I think you have a complete guard.
I have him number nine.
How come?
Um, what position is he?
Yeah, the size and what he does, it's not exactly the friendliest combo. I think ultimately he's somebody who you put him next to a floor general, and that's his ideal outcome, right? He doesn't have to make the tough decisions all the time as a passer, but it unlocks a lot of that scoring ability. If he can be a score first guard where he's not detrimental to the offense, I think there's a serious upside for him where he can also be a secondary, tertiary playmaker.
How tall is he? Like 6'2", 6'3"?
Yeah.
So that's why I'm like, do you take a guy at 6'2", 6'3", where he's more so of a combo guard with a questionable jump shot at number two? I would take El Marco Jackson over DJ Wagner.
That's fair. And now Marco's off the dribble shooting is fantastic too.
Better
So I mean
athlete.
yeah, I agree with that. I think I still don't know how to make El Marco out. I can't decide if it's a thing for me where I'm like, okay, what am I missing? And maybe I am just missing something here. But a lot of his game, and he's a very good defender too. And like with Kansas, if you're not a good defender, you're not going to see the court under Bill Self. And that's why I think he's going to be the freshman that plays the most minutes. If he's going to be shooting at a high level, like off the dribble, and he doesn't have bad shot selection, I can see the argument. And he's bigger.
Yeah, the concern though is that, man, like what's he could be Kansas's starting point guard, or he could like be their seventh man, just because Dewan Harris is going to play, Kevin McCullough is going to play. They got the transfer from Townsend, and the Big 12 is not a very friendly conference for freshmen, and so you got Arterio Morris is there. I think that he's the best prospect, but it wouldn't surprise me if we see a situation where he's the best prospect, but he ends up playing behind some guys that he's better than. What are your thoughts on Matas? Like, where do you have Matas Bazulis at?
I I have a lot of mixed thoughts. I think he up until last week I had a number two, and then I moved DJ there just because I didn't know what to do. And I think for me, look, there are holes in his game. He's skinny. He doesn't handle contact super well. But man, at that size, the shot making ability, it's too simple of an outline of a player for me not to be super high on. Like he's a 6'10" bucket. Like and for me, how he gets those in the G League Ignite is going to be big for him. I think it's going to really help him grow into that NBA mold of what he needs to do. But I think the ins and outs of his game are a little bit complex because it does not all of his scouting report like adds up, right? Where it's things for what is he, 6'9", 6'10".
I've
I
seen
still go back and
6'11". I've seen 6'11",
six
190.
eleven, and that's the thing where it's like he's too big to be doing these things at such a high level where it negates some of the negatives, right? Where it's like, yeah, you have concerns about how he's going to go through contact and things like that. But he's such a good jump shooter that it doesn't bother me all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not worried about the contact thing right now. I mean, he's so young. He's going to add weight to his frame, and he has the shooting to where he doesn't have to finish at the rim and through contact. So I think he's going to be fine. Um, yeah, I think he's going to be fine. But like when I watch him play, the talent is there. It just doesn't scream number one pick to me. And I've seen some people have him at number one. And even though like the McDonald's game is just a glorified all-star game, like I don't remember him in the McDonald's game. Like he had no impact. Maybe he had a better practice, which some people hold more value in the McDonald's practices. But I can't think of a time where a guy was like projected number one in the McDonald's game. I think he had like 5 points or something like that. But I saw him play at Basketball Without Borders, and he was the best player there. And even then, seeing him with that competition, I didn't walk away feeling like, oh yeah, this guy's the top pick. All right, when we return, I want to talk about a few more players. Want to hear your thoughts on Justin Edwards and Aaron Bradshaw from Kentucky, and then who was like this sleeper guy that you're higher on than the consensus. But first, let's talk about FanDuel, because at FanDuel, you can take your first swing at betting Major League Baseball on FanDuel. You can get 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets up to $200. That's right. Just bet $20 and you'll land $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. That is 200. You can spend betting everything from the money line to the over or the under, who you think is going to hit the first home run. And it's all on the app that is safe, secure, and super easy to use. And plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. There's no better place to bet on Major League Baseball than FanDuel, which is America's #1 sports book. So sign up today and visit FanDuel.com/locked on to get up to $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/locked on. FanDuel, the official partner of Major League Baseball and Locked On. All right, second segment. We talked about Matas Bazulis, we talked about Ron Holland, and we talked about DJ Wagner. I want to hear your thoughts on Justin Edwards. He's the guy that I think could go number one.
It's funny because last year, Brandon Miller, or I guess this year, the last draft cycle, Brandon Miller was 20 years old. He was approaching Mike Miles is always the one I've used, where he was a junior, similar age. He was an older freshman. And Justin Edwards is a similar boat. I believe he'll be 20 by draft time. Actually, might even be during the season. I can't remember. But you look at somebody like him, disregard that for a minute. If you buy the jump shooting, he's incredibly athletic. I really like his game. I think the laziest comparison I've seen is, oh, he's RJ Barrett. And it's like, okay, he's an athletic lefty. Like, I get it. But he's not RJ Barrett at all. And people are like, well, he's overhyped for it. I really like Justin Edwards. For a minute, I had him number one. Then I did a little bit more scouting on some other players and moved him down. But I really think that if you watch him in EYBL last year, I don't know how many more players were really more impressive than him. It was a very short list. He blew me away with his athleticism and using it in game to dominate while also using some skill too to use that athleticism. I really like his game.
See, when I watched this film, I didn't see like a elite athlete. I saw a good athlete, but I didn't see like elite. And maybe I got to watch it again. But he does turn 20 in December. But I mean, if you think about it, 3 of the top 5 picks were 20 in 2023. So are you going to hold that against Justin Edwards? Because the Thompson twins were 20. Brandon Miller was 20.
No. Me personally, this will be a 30-second rant, is age doesn't matter as long as it's relative to the competition, right? Somebody who's 18 but is very behind the curve on competition doesn't value that much. If it's Kobe Buffkin, who just turned 19 in the middle of his sophomore season. That's huge. I value that a ton. Whereas, there were the flags about the Thompson twins, I think were real. They were 20 years old playing high school competition. And it's all relative. Like, and even if they do have flags or praises, it doesn't mean it's always going to work out in the negative or positive direction.
All right. What do you have? Edwards? You have three?
Not at 3. I got him 4, right behind Matas.
Okay. So what's your order?
So right now I've got, I'm sorry, I have him 5th behind Matas, right? 4th, 5th. I can't here. So excuse me, I got Ron Holland at number 1, DJ Wagner, Matas, Justin Edwards. So I have him 4th.
Okay.
Had to talk that 3 there.
Who's 5?
I have, I might need your help on a pronunciation, but Izan out of Spain, Almanza.
Ethan.
Ethan? Oh my goodness, I've overthought that. Okay, so I have Ethan.
I'm torn on him, man. Like the overseas resume is impressive. I mean, he was MVP of the U17s, U18s, U19s, and last year was at the U18s. And Spain didn't even win; they lost to Ron Holland, and he won MVP. Some people felt like that should have been Cooper Flagg's MVP or whatever. When I watch him, I see like a guy that impacts games with hustle, energy, effort, not much shot creation. And then he averaged like 9 points a game for overtime this year, like 9 and 8. So it depends on how you feel about overtime. Like if you feel like overtime is, which overtime players I felt like helped the reputation of the league at Summer League. I mean, even if you talk about Dominic Barlowe and the Thompson twins, but he averaged 8 and 9, or either 8 and 9 or 9 and 8. And oh man, I think I put it like this. I think natural talent, just God-given talent and gifts. I think Alexander Sarr is more gifted.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
But he doesn't have the intangibles and the same type of impact.
I don't disagree with that. Alex Sarr is, for those who don't know, I mean, what is he, 7'1", 7'2", and does not move like it. Like there are very few athletes at his size that can do what he can do.
Yeah, his brother is like that. I've watched his brother work out. I filmed his brother. His brother spent some time in Dallas, and you just look at how naturally gifted he is, and you're wondering like, why isn't this guy an NBA starter?
His brother's not Sarr that was on Kentucky, is it?
Yes, that's his brother.
Oh my God, I wondered. I never did the research. Well, today I learned. I will say with Almanza, I do think the touch in the paint is something that is just so dominant for him. Like I really don't think you're going to find a big this class that has better touch at the paint than him.
Aaron Bradshaw.
Okay, well that's a good segue. I was going to say the last thing is just the FIBA's just a month earlier this month, last month, something like that. I think Ethan was the best player in the tournament, or at least I want to say he was the MVP of the tournament.
He was,
and so yeah, best player.
Three competitions in a row, 17s, 18s, and 19s.
Yeah. So there's dominance like at that level where I'm like, okay, going back to the numbers where you can say, yes, there is flags there, but we've seen on the international stage where things change. The play style is different. Maybe that play style translates a little bit more cleanly for him, and that's the real flash. That's going to be up to talent evaluators to really decide. And I think this next year will be telling.
Yeah, I think on one hand, Spain plays a beautiful brand of basketball from the youth levels and up. I think he greatly benefits in the European competition over the American competition. And I'm not saying that the point guards in Spain are better, but he has some really good playmakers in that generation. There's at least 3 or 4 guys in that generation that he played with that are just exceptional passers out of the pick and roll. Some have size. I mean, Spain and France are producing a lot of talent. France's individual talent is better, but Spain's ability to like get all their pieces to fit. Spain's been beating them, and I think France is going to have more guys in the NBA. It's so again, I like Ethan. I wonder like what how is he going to score in the G League? Because there were times when I watched him in FIBA and he would get these post ups where he would get like 5 dribbles before any help came. And then he got to like his touch shot around the rim. You're not gonna see that in the NBA. You're not gonna see that in the G League. Then yeah, I just wonder like what's his role. He doesn't space the floor. He's a good athlete, but not I wouldn't say he's like an elite at like, you know, as a vertical lob threat. He's a good passer. I just wonder like what's his role.
Yeah, and I mean that's where the big test for him is in the with the Ignite this year is, you know, how is he going to play in that or excuse me, the sped up tempo? Um, and on top of that, I mean, just yeah, how does he get to his game, right? And he's 6'9". He kind of plays a traditional old school game. I think that's a big question mark.
Who does he remind you of?
I saw one comparison. I struggle with comparisons as a whole. Somebody said this. I feel like it's the Spanish ties, but I get where they're coming from. Somebody said Pau Gasol. I'm not there on that personally. I think Pau Gasol would be number one pick. I don't have him number one, so I can't get there. But I think there's enough where you look at him and go, okay, see some of the traits. There's overlap, but I don't have one true comparison at the moment.
I don't either. I don't either. All right. When we return, I want to round out Richard's top 10. Stay tuned to find out who Richard has in his top 10 and who is his biggest surprise. All right. Last segment. Who is next on your list?
Yeah. So next on my list is a little bit. This is my the next two I think are very, very hot takes. It's funny. I actually just got done doing a video breakdown of Stephon Castle. It was my second one in 2 weeks, but Stephon Castle is my next one. And for me, I think just being at 6'6", if we see an improved, efficient free throw percentage, like you look at the jump shooting metrics that teams look at, I think if Stephon Castle is there, we're talking about somebody who is going to be a top 10 pick. I love his upside as a playmaker. Needs to get a little bit quicker from. There's a gap, and I don't know how to address it right with decision making. In AAU in the Under Armour circuit, he wasn't quick at identifying his role man, but at the same time, in high school, he was. I don't know if it's a chemistry thing, and he has Donovan Clingan, who might be the best role man in college basketball this year, who also is a top 10 pick for me. I think that combination is going to be big for Castle, and if he can make Clingan look even better, he's got himself a lottery ticket.
I like him. I like him a lot. He reminds me of Markelle Fultz, the way he moves.
Yes. Yes. I use that exact comparison too. Sorry, go on though.
Yeah, I like him a lot. And then he's someone that's kind of trending in the right direction. Like he wasn't a name that you heard about 3-4 years ago as like this phenom, and he's trending in the right direction at the right time. And I like his size. And so yeah, I mean UConn UConn may not be as good as they were last year, but I think they're gonna have 2 top 10 picks.
Yeah, I'm all the way there on Donovan Clingan too.
I talked to someone yesterday who said he thinks Donovan Clingan could be the number one pick.
You know, it depends on who's picking one. I think this is a year where we might see fit matters on number one. Where because most of the time I think that teams go, you know what, this guy is really good, we're taking him, and then they close the book. This year, I think it could be something like that, where you look at a situation and go, well, if we believe in the passing and if they see some shooting upside there, you could make the argument and say we can see this guy anchoring our defense and honestly just the paint on both ends at such a high level and being such a winning player that every title team needs as a big that you could take him number one. I personally wouldn't, but I think there's a strong argument to have him in the mix of that like top four.
Is he the next player on your list?
No, actually, it's a different sophomore. Somebody who I really think you'll like this one. Personally, I invest in the top sophomore every year. It might be Donovan, so I might be missing the mark, but I do think this guy has a chance to be, and it's one of your favorite players, uh, Riley Kugel. I think he is somebody that I am so high on his game. If he had declared this year, I think he was a first round pick,
Yeah.
and which says a lot. And I think I want to say you actually went one step further. I think you said top 20, if I'm not mistaken, or
I would
flirting
have
with
taken
top
him in
20.
the top 20. Yeah, I
Yeah.
would have taken
And
him.
and I agree with it. You look at what he did when he found rhythm this year at Florida, which took until January or February. He was insanely good. If you just looked at that was his film, where say he was injured before, right? And he came in at that point,
Yeah.
and that was all the stats he got. You're going, how is this guy not a one and done lottery prospect? He didn't test the waters. I think there's so much shot creation, shot making ability that you look on the wings, good size. I love his game.
Yeah, I think like if Riley Kugel came into the season as a projected one and done and had the same hype as a Dariq Whitehead, he'd have been a lottery pick. I just think that maybe NBA scouts just missed him. They probably missed him because he took off in the second half of the year. And if you watch Florida, if you're a scout, which I've have friends that are scouts, and when they kind of break down their schedule, it's like, all right, we watch Florida. Maybe we watched them play in November, December, and January, but we didn't watch them play in February. And then you end up coming in late. Anyway, I think that either he got a tremendous bag because he didn't even test, like you said, but I have some interesting stats. He shot 39.5% on jump shots, 39.6% on catch and shoot jumpers, 40% on guarded catch and shoot jumpers, 39% on unguarded catch and shoot jumpers, and 39% on jumpers off the dribble. So out of those five categories, it was 39, 39, 40, 39, 39. That's as consistent as I've ever seen someone. It doesn't matter whether it's just a jump shot period, off the catch, guarded, uncontested, and off the dribble. He shot 39% on jump shots. I think that he is very undervalued and underrated.
And for reference, just from Synergy, they rank it by points per possession, not the field goal percentage, but you can tie them together. Everything was in the 80s on that. Jump shot, 82nd percent. Catch and shoot, 82nd percent, especially on the guarded ones. Granted, only 25, 86 percentile. On the open ones, somehow he shot less, 39%, the 62nd percentile. Off the dribble as a whole, 86 percentile. Like those numbers aren't. I think when you hear high 30s and low 40s, we automatically just assume because we think of field goal percentage, right? Where it's like, well, they should be shooting better. It's actually very strong for a freshman in college.
Yeah, and I think that if he continues to shoot the ball like he shot last year and becomes a better finisher at the rim, even though he's a really, really good athlete, I thought his game lacked a little bit of pace in a sense, and he drove without a plan and played a little bit wild. But if he becomes a better finisher at the rim, then I think he's going to surprise a lot of people. I mean, he's strong, he's athletic, he can create his own shot, he can create space. That's something that's big for me, guys. That can create space. He's an active cutter, vertical lob threat, motor. He shows some flashes of core vision, but his turnovers like outnumbered his assists. But I like Riley Kugel a lot. Who's next on your list?
Yeah, so the next two are both sophomores, and it goes. And honestly, I might back the order up on this. I currently looking at it, I can't defend this, so I'm going to change it live. It was Proctor, then Donovan Clingan. I'm going to reverse it. I think Donovan Clingan at 8, and then Tyrese Proctor at 9 is how I would order that. And we talked about Clingan a little bit, but with Proctor, I just feel like he found a rhythm at the end of the season that's so easily translatable to the next season. I love his game. I've loved his game since he was at the NBA Academy. I think he's somebody who the space creation, all of it will come together this year as a sophomore for him.
Yeah, I
The
mean,
only the only concern I have is they have 4 guards. It's going to be a little bit difficult for anyone to stand out.
yeah. I mean, but I feel like it's the same case for Kentucky. There's maybe a little bit better, but the Ignite, I have no idea how they're going to keep all of those guys happy. A lot of overlapping skill sets. Talked about it on the previous podcast with Duke. You're wondering is, I mean, on one hand, you look at Jeremy Roach, who averaged 13 a game, and you're like, is that the guy that has the least amount of NBA buzz in a sense? But he averaged 13 a game, and Shire is probably going to lean towards him because he's a veteran and he's been there. But who's the odd man out? Is it Caleb Foster or is it Jared McCain? And it just takes me back to something a college coach told me, and he's one of the top coaches. And he was like, you can't recruit all of these freshmen because you can't keep them all happy, and then one is going to leave for the draft, and then the one that doesn't is going to leave anyway. So you might as well just stop trying to recruit these huge recruiting classes because the chances of you keeping all of them are slim to none, and it makes a lot of sense. And so somebody at Duke is going to be the odd man out. I can't see them keeping all four guards happy. I look at Kentucky too. I mean, even though it's extremely early, we saw that Rob Dillingham didn't play a lot when they went to Toronto. And I mean, I thought that situation was a disaster from the beginning. But anyway, that's a whole different subject. All right, who is next on your list?
Yeah, so I've got Marco Jackson. That's my 10th ranked prospect. We talked about him. I don't know what to do with him because I think he has the easy potential to, like you kind of said, to climb. Just don't know what to do.
Yeah, what's his role going to be? I've heard that
Yeah.
he's looked really good in practice, but I've heard that about every single player.
Who
Right now,
hasn't? Like,
I've heard everybody's dominating practices. So your list is pretty similar to mine, except I have Aaron Bradshaw in there. I think that I actually had someone tell me they think he could go number one if the shot is falling. He's 7 foot, athletic, shot blocker, can knock down open shots. Just doesn't have the same buzz because he was in the shadows of DJ Wagner. But I did have someone tell me that I think if he puts it together, that he could go number one just because, I mean, there's value in a guy that can protect the rim, be a vertical lob threat, finish around the rim, and space the floor.
I have two big reservations with Aaron Bradshaw. One of them is the foot injury. When you're big and you have a foot injury this far out, I always am curious to see how that comes along. I think it's tough when you're 7 foot to have that foot injury this quick. But the other thing that really scares me more from a technical element to his game is his defensive technique and approach and just honestly motor on the defensive end. It
Mm-hmm.
feels like, at least on the perimeter, he does what a lot of. I remember Kristaps Porzingis did this on the Mavs. Somebody would shoot in the corner, and this was his defense. You go, it's fine. Literally putting his hand out and going, shoot it, whatever. And that stuff was so consistent. I would watch his possessions and I'd be like, okay, like it can't happen again. And it did. He doesn't move his feet well. He's just content with guys shooting threes over him. And that really bothers me. And I get it. Stars in high school don't play a lot of defense, but that level was alarming to me.
Well, I tell you what, you won't see that at Kentucky.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's you won't play. You will not play. And
You won't.
also, they have such a great defender behind him. One of the biggest sleepers, I think, in the draft with Ugana Onyenso. I think he is somebody who he will play defense for both of them.
He plays defense, but his offense looks so raggedy to me. It looks
Yeah,
so unpolished. His movement, his game just isn't aesthetically pleasing to me.
he's a fun shot blocker though.
Yeah, he's a good shot blocker. But I wonder, I mean Trey Mitchell's too good to like not play, and Kentucky needs to win. So I wonder if you're gonna end up seeing Bradshaw and Trey Mitchell playing together. Trey Mitchell was really good at the Global Jam. And yeah, I mean that's just my opinion. I think Trey Mitchell is going to play a lot.
I like it. Hey, before we go, I know we're running short on time. There's one guy I got to ask because I feel like this guy's a sleeper and I have no idea how. We talked a lot about the G League Ignite. What do you think of London Johnson? For me personally, he was somebody who he's on a 2-year G League Ignite contract. He played this last year, didn't get a ton of buzz. I like his game. I'm curious what you think of him and what his draft
Yeah,
outlook is.
I mean, people aren't really talking about him. I talked about him on the previous podcast. I think he's going to be good. 6'4", shot maker, pull up shooter, has offensive creativity that I like. Struggled, only shot 47% at the rim, but he was supposed to be in high school. So I think once he gets stronger, there was a game that I saw where on offense he looked fine, but he just was outmatched against Grant Riller. But Grant Riller is such a gifted scorer, especially on the G League level. And so, I mean, it's not surprising that he struggled. But I think, once he gets stronger, he'll have another year under his belt. I think he's going to be good. And then Tyler Smith is someone that I think a lot of people are just totally forgetting about. Going to OTE may have been good for him financially, but it was kind of terrible for like his buzz. He was a top 10 pick in his class, 6'11", can shoot a little bit. He was fourth in OTE in 3-point shooting, not last year, but the year before. Percentage went down this year, but he has a lot of skills and he's gifted. And you probably don't remember, but when we went to watch Keontae play at the gym, he was there, but he didn't play. He was supposed to transfer to I school to play with Keontae. Then Keontae transferred to IMG, and then he ended up going to OTE. So,
The
but
more you know.
he's really gifted. Tyler Smith is really gifted. All right, well, that wraps up this episode. Once again, thank you for making the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast your first listen of the day. And we will be back next week with more NBA draft takes for 2024. I'm Rafael Barlowe. He's Richard Stayman, and we are